Fear not, denizens, Parade is here, aka the bringer of rain, aka father of the sea and sun, aka king of the core. And before I introduce my wonderful guest, I want to welcome you to the Raincore channel, where we're doing the Core Creator Podcast, where I interview creators across the HoloNet. And today we have a very special guest, Batu Bounder, fashionista extraordinaire, co-host of Off the Rack Rebellion, Burgundy 3 of Burgundy Squad, Ceit from One Scavenger's Wardrobe. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. It's so nice to finally talk with you, and I hope you can still hear me.
I can.
Technology's okay, great. There's cords everywhere, and I'm just not sure about.
We're good. If we do, we'll pause, a hard cut, and we'll just pick back up where we started.
There's ways to get through it. I love it. Hi.
It's so wonderful to have you.
Thank you.
And you know, it's so funny. Every time I have a Burgundy Squad person, I'm like, we have these weird parasocial relationships. The ones who we haven't meet, we're like following each other and we're commenting, right, and we're messaging. But then it's a whole different thing when you meet someone in person or do like a video call like this. Because it's like, oh, this person's has a voice.
Oh, I know. Or even a face if we're talking about our Mandos, right? Because I met up with I met up with Womp Rat Mando last summer for the first time. Yeah. And I didn't know what his face looked like. And like the day before, he's like, oh, by the way, this is like what I look like without a helmet. I'm like, oh, awesome. Not what I expected at all.
Right. Even like our pseudonyms for like our Instagrams and our OCs, it's like, oh yeah, I actually have a real name. You know, like,
right. And sometimes I only know someone's screen name or someone's character name, but not their screen name, but or vice versa. And like then I'm like, wait, you have a real name?
Yeah. Or when I would go to conventions, I would like point at someone. I'll just be like regular clothes or nothing. And I'm like, oh hey, like what's your face? And they're like, hi, and I'm like, oh, I'm Parade. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's like right. It makes more sense.
Yes, totally. I kind of put a blanket statement on one of my like stories before my last big convention. I was like, if I'm like just going up and pointing at you and being like, I know you, it's me.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, so let's start with, where does your love of Star Wars begin?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love this story because it just brings back memories. So my dad was a Star Wars fan. So apparently, when the first original movies came out, he took my older cousins to see it. Okay. Which I didn't know until later, and they were like, oh yeah, your dad got excited every time it came out. So I was born just before Return of the Jedi came out. So I did not see any of them in the theater originally. But when we were young, I was probably, I'm trying to think of how old I was, but I was probably 7, maybe 8. Okay. They were on back-to-back nights, like consecutive nights, on ABC or something like that. Yeah. And my dad was so excited, and it was like, yeah, we're going to watch it. And like, we were so young that like, I remember my brothers, I have 2 younger brothers. We were sitting in a row on the floor eating like popcorn out of like plastic bowls, right? Like we were young. Yeah. And I distinctly remember, and I love the story, that my middle brother who went to Batu with me last year. Oh, right. He got super scared during the trash compactor scene. And he was just like panicked, and he was like, Dad, you got to turn it off. Dad, they're gonna die. Yeah. And I just turned to him, being the older one, I was like, I was like, there's 2 more movies. They can't die. I was like, calm down. Yeah. So like, I remember like that summer we started playing a lot of it with the neighbor kids, and then consecutive summers. And it was just kind of like one of those other genres, like in the back of your mind. If you weren't playing Robin Hood, if you weren't playing Pirates, if you weren't, you were probably playing Star Wars. Yeah. And then really when I got like to middle school is when they were re-released. George changed a few things, and we got to go see those in the theater, and my dad was super excited. So like, he got to take us to those. And we had like the box set of the VHS, that Darth Vader where it's like gold and black. Yeah. Yes. Like that was our prized possession, right? We were like, oh, it was like the Holy Grail. Right. Yeah. So it was definitely from when I was a kid. And like, like the first 2 prequels came out when I was in high school. Okay. I got really into the novels. So I just randomly would find them and didn't always read them in order or anything. And then same thing with the comic books. Like I just randomly find a comic book at the drugstore. And so sometimes I knew the whole story and sometimes I didn't.
Right.
But that's why I have a book club that we've been doing for about a year.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, we've been looking back at some of the old ones that either some of us had read or some of us had never read to try and catch up on like what's legends now.
Right.
That's, so it was really something that I like loved when I was a kid. Kind of like it spanned my whole childhood, I feel like.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
Yeah, and it's fun to have it back, you know?
Yeah, I was, I can't remember who I was telling. I said there was a point where I thought Star Wars was dead, right? So like, we got episode
like they had done
3,
it, right?
And it's like, all right.
Yeah.
And there was rumors that maybe in 7, 8, 9 would come out. And obviously there's like legacy comic books and stories that go past that. But to me, I'm like, I don't think we would ever get it. And so I put that fandom to the side and I'm like, okay, we'll just move on. Cause like I felt like I got as much as I could, maybe video games and things like that. But it was very surprising when, you know, where they're like, okay, we're going to do 7, 8, 9.
Yeah. And I realized, I was like, I understand how my dad felt after, you know, that drought from 83 to the 90s, right? And be like, wow, that was that excitement of being like, oh my God, I get more. Yes. This is fantastic.
Yeah. Cause it was
you know, and even with like, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Oh no, I was going to say 2000s to late 2010s, you know, that's when we get our movie. So, but please continue your thought.
Yeah, it made sense. And I mean, we had like the cartoons and things like that were still kind of coming in, like you said, video games, but it is different seeing it on the big screen. Like it's so exciting. We went to see episode 1, you know, at the beginning of the month when it came back out, and I was like, oh yeah. Like I say things about the prequels, but this is still fun and nostalgic. And I was like a stupid idiot grinning the whole time. Like I was like so happy. Oh, I was thrilled. So
yeah, that's awesome. And now that you have kids, I know you like your stuff in the background and you know, you post that your son's into it. Like, what is it like for you being a parent and now introducing, similar to your dad, introducing your kids to these movies?
Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. So our teenager is actually my stepson, but I've known him. I've been in his life since he was really young.
Got it.
And so he was already into it when I came into his life. He got into it pretty young, but I was the one that got him into cosplay. Like we went to our first convention when my little guy was 3 months old. I was just telling my friend that she has a 2.5-month-old baby, and she's like, were you guys crazy or are we gonna get there? I was like, well, a little of both. But he loved, you know, just the Halloween costume with like, you know, one of these helmets. But he loves the stormtroopers, you know, and like both his dad and I are like, come on, the bad guys. But he's always like, the bad guys have better costumes. So he would have his little like stormtrooper bucket on and like his little, you know, Halloween costume and his little blaster, and he would carry it around like in this pose the whole convention. He was so into character. It was hilarious. And I was like, so we went like consecutively until the pandemic hit, and now we're back. So he doesn't do as much cosplay because he's a teenager now. But the little guy discovered actually that helmet, the Boba Fett helmet, when I was like getting out, because we keep these all in the closet most of the time. Haul them out for May. I get to go beg, and I hauled that out, and he found that, and he found like the gauntlets, and he was just like, "Whoa, what is this?" And he's inherited the Legos, like some of my Legos, some of his brother's Legos. So he loves droids. Because we've got 2 Lolas right there. So like I'm trying to like coax him by giving him these little breadcrumbs because I don't want to force it down his throat because I don't want him to go in the opposite direction. So I just kind of keep being like, hey, you want to watch this droids cartoon? No? Okay, maybe another day. But like, I think the droid smiths, like I've showed him some pictures of those folks like Mars and those guys. And now he actually, he has an official Mando helmet coming to him. That T-Face Cowboy saw that, and I'd been messaging with him because they are making mine as well. And Liam was like, what size head does he have? Because I've got an extra helmet. I was like, oh my God. So that's awesome. You know, I think the more and more we get into it, the more he is going to go down that road as well.
Yeah. It's hard not to get bit by that Star Wars bug.
I think so.
Because it's just, I mean, however you want to have your opinions on like how good the movies are or aren't, the acting, and like it's for kids, it's not for kids. The universe that's built out is pretty cool. Like just in general, just when you're looking at different genres and things like that, it's a pretty unique thing. that they have here.
I think so. And I think the more it expands, and I get kind of sassy about this, about like what is Star Wars and what isn't Star
Right.
Wars, but I think that it's a huge galaxy.
It's
And we're
huge.
talking like, with this Acolyte coming out, we're now spanning hundreds of years, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's something for everybody. Like
Yeah.
you can find yourself in this galaxy, and that's part of what I love about it.
I agree. I agree. Now, when does costuming start for you? Because I know you
So,
mentioned going to cons and then,
yeah.
getting your posts here and there. You talk about, costuming before and things like that. So when does that come
Yeah.
into your life?
So costuming came into my life as a teenager because I grew up in Michigan, really close to the Michigan Renaissance Festival, which
Okay.
is one of the huge old. I think they're celebrating actually 45 years this summer.
Oh,
We're
wow.
gonna go back and go. Yeah. So it's not like the oldest, but they are a larger one there, an older one, and I grew up there. A lot of my friends were on cast.
Okay.
And so, I couldn't afford to buy everything I wanted to wear, so I had to figure out how to make a lot of it.
Right.
And through that, I mean, literally, I was like sitting on my floor hand sewing these things. And my grandma taught me how to hand sew. I was probably 6.
Wow.
And so that's just what I did. I like taught myself how to sew through that. And then I was a performer in a small performance group for like Renaissance fairs. We went to small festivals like in Michigan and Wisconsin.
Yeah.
20 years ago, and so literally I still didn't know how to use a machine, and I was sewing these huge like Renaissance gowns by
By
hand.
hand.
So my neck is really bad these days, like
Hunched
really
over.
bad.
Yeah.
Yes, totally. I am an old lady. But one of my best friends, it was really into. Actually, he went to England for his doctorate in medieval arms and armor.
Oh, wow.
And he and I were super into like sewing all this stuff, and so we would put on the Lord of the Rings extended editions
Yeah.
just for one whole day
Yeah.
and just sew. Just whoa, we're such nerds. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So that is where it came in, and then I took a break. I moved out west. I took a break, and I definitely like downsized my life, and then one summer I went back to the local festival that was here, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is like similar to Star Wars. It's like one of those core life memories of like, I need this in my life. Like this is my comfort zone. This is my happy place.
Yeah.
And so started getting back into costuming through that, but because my oldest was into Star Wars, and I was like, well, let's do a family cosplay, next time
yeah.
we go to convention. And so he had his stormtrooper, and my husband doesn't wear costumes, but he is a walking Wookiee. His beard is like enormous, and so I just kind of one of those Chewbacca hoodies. I'm like, just pull your
put
hood
it
up,
on,
you'll
yeah.
be fine. Yeah, and so I made a Rey costume, and my goal was, what if I used entirely scavenged materials? What if for Rey, the scavenger, none of this is new? And it was part of why I left costuming was I was like, it feels a little wasteful. I was like, it
right.
feels a little like all this stuff was produced, all this stuff was made, and like it's just to be worn once or twice. And so that was something that was like difficult for me for a while. And so that's how I justify getting back into it. Like, oh, well, I'm like using secondhand stuff. And it was a really fun challenge. I was still trying to get as close to the screen as I could, but acknowledging to myself, like, if my 9-year-old thinks I look like Rey, I look like Rey, and like, so we did that, and the little guy was BB-8, and we had a great time,
Awesome.
and we were all just like, man, this is, yeah, I'm even more hooked, right?
Yeah.
And so that was my first like character cosplay that I did for like a convention was Rey, and I love her.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah, I
yeah.
remember seeing those posts too, like the very beginning of when
Mm-hmm.
we all started looking for bounders, right? You and Billy
Yeah.
talked about that on Off the Rack Rebellion. Make sure you guys
Yes.
go listen in. But similar story to you, it's like, okay, Disney has a thing, bounding's a thing. What are people doing? And I
Yeah.
run across, Billy doing it, and like Always Believe, Ash and Brian doing it, and and then it kind of like just kind of blossomed there. But now
Yeah.
it's interesting because I think what's happening is people are figuring out this Batu bounding thing, and now they're finding not only Billy, but now they're finding you. So
Yeah.
when did you decide you're like, I'm gonna just start posting my like my everyday Star Wars bounding looks, because
Yeah.
no joke, you're probably posting the most the most looks I've seen.
I know. Scott from Prop Right Props is like, if I look up the Batu bounding hashtag, it's just you. It's just you just come up, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
No, it's a good thing.
No,
it's a great thing.
yeah. So that's what. So after pandemic, so we had gone down to Disneyland for actually our little guy's second birthday. I was like, hey, you know who's still free at Disneyland?
Oh, right, yeah.
And, I like, that's when I looked up and found out what Disney bounding was. I was like, oh, this is awesome. And so I put together, I mentioned this in Off the Rack Rebellion, that, I put together a couple of character bounds for Star Wars. One was like Princess Leia, Endor Trooper. So I had like this really cool, like, camo poncho jacket and like some grayish blue pants, but I wore like a tank top with Wicket's face on it, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
So like that to me is like still Disney bounding. So we were going back for our first trip after the pandemic. I was like, woo, we can go places. We're all losing our mind. Let's go back to the last place we were before this all started. Let's like pick up where we left off.
Right.
Let's go to Disneyland.
Yeah.
And so we did, and I was like, but you know what, this time, so I put together a look that was inspired by Rey. It wasn't like totally a mimic of Rey, but it was definitely inspired by her. Maybe like my idea of an alternative outfit or something like that, because I wanted to be able to look as close to something that you would see in that universe and not be a character, right?
Right.
And so I did it, and people loved it. It was so, I was like blown away. It was like you're at con where everyone's like, I love your outfit. I love your outfit. And I spoke about this in our podcast that, I did hear one person being like, oh, well, that lady really loves Star Wars.
Right.
And like for a split second, I felt bad about it. And I was like, God, I'm an adult. What am I doing? But then I was like, somebody came running up to me like, can I have my picture with you? And I was like, oh my God, yeah. And I turned to my husband. I was like, maybe I might dress like this all the time. And he was like, don't you already?
Yeah.
And I realized, I was like, oh yeah, like because of Disney bounding, I did it a lot during the pandemic. Like it helped keep me sane. It helped me feel like I was connected to something outside of the house. Right. And really I was like, oh yeah, I guess I had been kind of digging through these looks and kind of evolving into this subconsciously. I didn't know it. And at that point I had found Billy through researching for this trip. And then when I got back, I was like, you know what? This fall, like after Halloween is kind of done, which is big for me, I was like, I'm just going to dive into this and see what happens. Like, I'm just going to start. And by then, like I was talking to Billy more. I was talking to Noisy Morning. If you don't follow Noisy Morning, people go follow him. Oh my God. And we just, we started talking a lot and becoming friends, and that it all snowballed from there. It was insane. I loved it. So and it was like we were all that Spider-Man meme where it's all the versions of Spider-Man like pointing at each other, being like, well, "You're so good. Oh, but you're so good. Oh, but you inspire me. But you inspire me." And it just, I think we just kind of started collecting more friends that were really into it, and it's just taken off. So
I always say it. It's there's a lot of creative people in Burgundy Squadron, and it's like we're finally just kind of finding each other, and like, oh wait, you like this? Oh wait, you like this? Oh, we're like Star Wars.
Where have you been all my life?
Like, did we just become best friends?
We instantly. I know. Well, and then that's what happened. Where then, Steve Vegas Freeze was like one of our early folks that had kind of found us, and we were all in this very small group chat, like 5 of us or something. And Zach Eskrin, Midrim Rebel, and so I think it was it Steve or Zach? Somebody was like, "Hey, May the 4th in Disneyland, let's go." And the guys, I was the only gal in the group, and the guys were all like, "Oh yeah, let's do it." And then I went to my husband. I was like, "Okay, so there's this thing." I grew up playing hockey, and I used to be a rock climber, and I'm like, I hate letting the guys get ahead of me.
Okay.
I just hate being the one that
you grew up with 2 brothers, so I get it. You have
I grew up 2 brothers. I'm always like, whatever you can do, I can do. And so I was like, hey, honey.
Yeah.
Guys are all saying they're going to go to Disneyland. I was like, what do you think? And so he was like, I think you should do it. Yes. Because all of my real life friends have actually left our area and I don't
Oh,
see
okay.
any of them very often. And he was like, you need to make more friends.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. You should do it. And I was like, well, I can't just go meet a bunch of guys I don't know except for the internet on my own. Wow, can't really do
At least
that.
it's in a
And so I
public
like
place. At
called my
least it's in a
brother.
public place.
I know, right? I mean, like it can, but like if our moms found out, they would kill me. So I was like, hey, I called my middle brother, and I was like, what are you doing in May?
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have kids. He works this insane job, long hours. Like, you know, I was like, you need a vacation,
Right,
and I
right,
think you
right.
should come with me. And I talked him into it, and so that was great. But it was like going to Batu. So it ended up that Billy jumped in, Zach Eskrin jumped in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the three of us were like, yes, we're gonna see each other. Some other folks we didn't know were there, which we kind of didn't know them well yet.
Yeah,
But then
yeah.
we're like, oh hey, you know, and it was like it was this awesome opportunity to be like, oh my gosh, we're in person, we're going crazy and just wild and just loving this, and you do kind of become like even closer friends, right? And I
Yeah.
got to see a few people since then, like in person, and say hi, and it's just awesome. Like,
Yeah.
because you do realize you're like, wow, we're all kind of cut from the same cloth.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're all, you know, like when Womp Rat Manda was like, hey, I'm gonna be out there. Let's get together. I was like, oh my God, yes. And now we get together. His wife's family is from out here, and so
Okay.
they come out regularly. So like, you know, we met up for Christmas and like exchanged Christmas gifts
Oh,
and stuff
nice.
like that. It's just like, I know, it's like, wow, we're kind of predispositioned to have this super intense bond already.
Right.
But there's just such lovely people. I'm always
Yeah.
telling people, like, these people are awesome, like, just so talented and generous and just sweet. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God. You know, I could gush about our friend group forever. I will. I'll gush about it for the rest of my life. They're just wonderful people.
Right. No, for sure.
So,
I mean, it's just a little bit of the opposite of how most people meet up, right? Because what happens is they'll meet up in person or you'll meet at a convention and then you'll follow each other on Instagram and then you have this internet relationship. But then you
Yeah.
guys it's just reverse. And
Yeah,
you
we
learn
did it
about
backwards.
Yeah, it's all backwards. And it's fine. Like it's 2024. We could do that. And
right.
it's like we're still making friends. But it's over these long distances, right?
Yeah.
Because I know
Yeah.
some of the guys in Burgundy Squad are like on the other side of the pond, like they're on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
England
yeah,
or
because
London.
Billy has moved back to England now, which
Yeah.
we very much miss. And yeah, and some of the folks, that's just where they've always been.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do we get everyone together more often, right? But I think it's lovely to have it. So part of why my husband was like, yeah, go, is because his friend group is actually formed up of a bunch of people that played video games with his best friend. And they all became, and you know, like we've all been to each other's weddings, we get together for
Yeah.
the holidays, like you know, kids' birthday parties, like they are our best friends, right? And so it wasn't new to him. He was like, oh, you found
concept.
new
Yeah,
people
yeah.
online,
Yeah.
right? So in this day and age, in our generation, we're like, yeah, this happens.
Yeah.
And it is nice that we are centered around something that does have conventions, that does
Right.
have, there's always Disney, East or West,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's always something that usually you can shout out and be like, hey, anybody have some time off and want to meet up at this? So it's kind of
That's
nice.
so cool. Yeah, because otherwise, if we didn't have the technology we have, of course, with its
Yeah.
pros and cons and its you know
Yeah.
the good and the bad,
Right?
we wouldn't be able to do like this podcast, right?
Oh, totally.
Unless
Well,
we're
and
in the
like
same room.
I see Adam Drunk Traders Outpost
Hmm.
all the time because he's in my book club with me. We do RPG with Zach and
Nice.
a couple of the other guys. Like, and I'm like, I see you more than I see like my best friend of 20 years, right? I was like, I see your face all the time, right? And so we've like formed these little like ways we can hang out, and
Yeah.
it is because of technology.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
it's great.
So.
It's great. So I want to know, and if you're willing to go behind the scenes into the One Scavenger's Wardrobe Instagram,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
do you pick your looks and how do you plan to like post? Because I feel like you do a lot, and I'm not saying it's a bad
Okay.
thing. I'm just curious, like
No.
how you do it as
Yeah.
a content creator in that
For
way.
sure. And no, and it depends on what I'm doing. There's a couple of different things I'm doing. So if it's for like Disney bounding, so there's that big March Disney bounding channel or challenge by the official The Disney Bound, like the
Oh,
gal
okay.
who started
Oh, right.
the concept of Disney bounding. So like there's these prompts that come out for the whole month. I am a pen and paper person, so I like print out blank calendar, and I've got my blank notebook, and I write in the prompts, and then I kind of think like, okay, what do I have? Okay, I go to my closet. Actually, just recently I've color coded my closet.
Nice.
So it's like all the dresses are in rainbow order, all the jumpsuits are in rainbow order, all the shirts are in rainbow order, right? And it's actually kind of great because I can just go in and be like, I'm looking for something orange. Okay, what do I have? And that's how I do Disney bounding.
Okay.
The way I'm doing Batuu bounding, a little more haphazard. It's a little more like, kind of like, especially last winter, I was doing this thing where I was asking folks for suggestion of a profession that you might not see on the screen in Star Wars, or that that you don't see. Like somebody recommended like a calf shop employee, or was it like a wildlife biologist but put it in Star Wars? And I was like, "Ooh, wow! There's got to be somebody that's out there studying those creatures, right?" And so it was just kind of dreaming up what I thought that would look like. Thinking of like character concept art and how it has evolved. It's really interesting to me. I need to get those books because everyone's like, "Do you have the books on the costumes of Star Wars?" I'm like, "No, I should." So I need to ask those for Christmas. But just kind of like looking at what's been done on the screen and pulling similar silhouettes, or of course I've got like a huge big long a couple Pinterest
pinboards, a lot of pinboards,
right? And just looking for like colors and textures, and the silhouette I think tells such a story. So
your output is crazy, and I'm like afraid to ask how big your closet is.
I know, that's what I've like. It's been asked a couple of times about a closet tour, and I'm like, maybe, except I'm kind of embarrassed. So I remember this. This is so silly. I remember this news piece, like on the local Detroit news when I was a kid, about this woman who owned, stupid that it was on the news, so many shoes that her husband didn't know how many she owned.
Okay.
And I'm like, I am that woman, except for the fact that my husband has his guitar collection. So we kind of have this balance. Like, you can have all your guitars. I've got all my shoes, baby. Like, but I'm like, whatever. I'm super into secondhand. Like a lot of it is from Goodwill and Poshmark and all that stuff. I'm like, whatever. I love eBay. Like, I don't care. Whatever. No shame.
No, I don't think there should be.
Oh yeah. So it is funny. It's a decent sized closet. My poor husband has like 2 shelves and 1 rack. But he's a cargo pants and flannel and band t-shirt guy, and that's it, his comfort level. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Great.
Yeah, I don't think anyone should be judged by what makes them feel good or confident.
No, right. Well, I'm like, yeah, you can fit in that side of the closet. That's okay.
As long as it doesn't come like excessive hoarder status where like,
I know,
it might fall on your kid.
A couple times he's like, honey, I'm like, I know that rack is getting a little heavy. Sorry about that. And then I'm lucky enough that we added a second closet in there just for like my fabric, because I have a fabric hoard that luckily I can go and pull stuff from. I did like a look her at the Ren Fair last weekend that was completely, I had everything for like 3 or 4 years. So it's like, this comes in handy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
what is your favorite piece that you have for Batuu bounding, or something that you really enjoy wearing? Garment, accessory, or... Oh
man. So Billy and I talked about this, and I gave the answer of jumpsuit because like I'm so into jumpsuits. But I feel like also a nice cropped vest. I think I have several. Like one was made by the super talented Red Cup Apparel, and everything else is thrifted and hacked up. But I'm like a smaller person. I've got a long torso, short legs. So I love that silhouette of the cropped vest or the cropped jacket. It works for my body type, and I have a few. In fact, I have a few that I keep being to like put patches on and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh man, the patches thing is so crazy because I like patches, but I'm not like any kind of seasoned sewer at all.
Okay.
So I'm just like, all right, needle, let's just go.
Yep.
And it's so
totally.
And it's weird, and it's probably the first time I'm talking about it. I don't have thread, and so I said, okay, what's the next best thing? And I have fishing line. So
I was gonna say fishing line. I used to work in the fishing department of a Bass Pro Shop.
Hey,
I was the only female there as well. I'm really used to that. And a lot of the guys would come in with like their work shirt buttons sewn on, but they were like, you know what? This is not coming off.
It's not coming off.
This is
It's like 30-pound test line. Yeah, you're going to have to rip that sucker off or cut it off. But what's great about using fishing line is it's clear. So even like it's all over my backpack right now because I did the Burgundy squad and all my other patches with it. And through canvas too, it's like harder to kind of, I had a thicker needle, thankfully. But
that's actually a great idea.
Yeah, but since it's clear, you don't see how like messy it is if I like use black or anything. So I did that. Perfect. Yeah, it worked out great because like they have most of them. They have like your iron on, but with the canvas material, it was coming off. So I was like, I gotta get this.
I was gonna say I never can get anything to stay just by ironing it. And then some of my stuff, like I want to do, because there's this like, you know, the punk look that's coming out, the Star Wars punk look for like the Mos Eisley. And I'm like, maybe I'll never get to Mos Eisley, but I just want the look, right? And I was just like, so I kind of want one that's like a denizen look and one that's like, I was wearing my Mara Jade cosplay when I met up with Rami Shanaday, who is our producer for Off the Rack Rebellion. And he was like, you should do like a punk Mara Jade. I'm like, yes, I should. Yeah. And so I'm like looking for like another black leather jacket to like put more like dark side stuff on, right? Because I kind of want both. Yeah. So I'm like, I wouldn't be able to iron that on that, so I definitely would have to sew it. Yeah.
When you did the challenge week before May the 4th, what inspired you to do that?
Well, I had seen a lot of the other Disney bounders, you know, do one for their birthday or do one to commemorate something. And I was like, that would be fun. And I was thinking about doing it last year, but just got so busy with the prep. I go to Batu, you know, I was like spray painting things and sewing things like right up until the last day. And so I was like, this is the year. Like I missed out last year, so I jumped on it this year. And it was super nice. Like I had a couple of folks give me some feedback because I was like, these are themes I'm thinking of. But I like to leave it really open-ended because I really love when people think outside of the box on a theme. I like the extra creativity. So it was really amazing to see so many people do it. I was really excited. And I found a few more Disney bounders that I hadn't met before. And that was really lovely. Like somehow they had found me and I was like, awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I mean, going back to making it broad, because even I remember in the comments, like, what does off the page mean? Or
totally. And I was like, well, it could mean, I mean, I wanted everything from like, this is a comic book character to something inspired by like the ancient Jedi texts, right? I was like, or like, and I can't remember her name right now, but the Jedi librarian lady, right? I'm like, anything that has to do with
New or something like that.
Jocasta Nu. Thank you. She's one of my. I have this whole list of like older female characters that are in the back of my head that I'm like, yes, someday I'm gonna do that. So I never have to stop cosplaying. I'll just start cosplaying as like, you know, the 70-year-old woman someday. Yeah, I mean, like, you can cosplay any age and all that, but at some point in time, I'd like to stop pretending I'm 18 because I'm double that, you know, like way past double that. I'm just like, so yeah.
Yeah, I feel like to compliment you, I don't think you look your age. I think you look younger than you are.
It's also, I'm going to say, it's like bad lighting right now, but... But why, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think a lot of us, or it might just be my broken eyes, I think a lot of us still look young. And so,
you know, my best friend and I were talking about, I got together with her, went to visit this past weekend, and we were talking, and we were like, there is this sort of mentality, I feel like being raised in the era of pop culture that we're in, where it's very fun, very goofy, very imaginative, and a lot of us are holding on to that and not letting go. And I'm really proud of that because, like, you know, like, you don't have to act like a super serious adult. Sure. Like, where is it written that we have to stop being imaginative or creative when we reach a certain age? Like, it's kind of...
I think that also when your mental is fun and happy and having joy, I think that does show physically. So that might also be the reason. Because if I'm just like, I hate my job, clocking in and out, I don't have any fun in my life, then I'm going to probably just burst out in wrinkles and just start deteriorating.
Well, it's, you know, I didn't want to say that, like, because the world is a hard place and, like, we need to, like, work to survive, right? And totally, like, yes, a lot of people, this is where it is. It's like, wow, I've got this job I don't love, but I've got to keep it because I've got to survive. Of course. And, just finding some sort of outlet is, I think, really important for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, I have another question for you. Mm-hmm. What is it called? The Leia Hutt Slayer.
Yeah.
Okay, so talking about looks and people saying you really love Star Wars, that
Yeah.
to me, you have to be pretty confident because you're showing a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
But
you are.
so what compels you to be like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna put myself out there, put it on the internet,
Yeah.
with the good and the bad that's gonna come along with it. What please walk me through that, because I'm a
Totally.
cosplayer, self
Yeah.
insecurity about putting
Yeah.
yourself out there. Please
Absolutely.
walk me through that.
Yeah. So that's one of my favorite things actually. It was a journey because there was a point in my life that I was like, I would never wear that. Like, wow, no, thank you. And I definitely, I looked at it really kind of in this, oh, that's such a dumb costume kind of like mentality. And then during the pandemic, I struggled a lot with like debilitating anxiety. There was a lot going on in the world that just it got to a point where my brain just kind of broke and I was like, ooh, it was like really bad. And one thing that got me out of it was Carrie Fisher being as amazing as she was and like I will never recover from losing her when we did, right? Like
Yeah.
just still today. But kind of her mentality of like be scared but do it anyway and her mentality towards mental health. And it was during the phase where we were finally getting vaccinations. And one of my triggers for anxiety is medical anomalies and unknowns because I've had some health issues that were pretty scary. And just even getting that vaccination was like a huge trigger for me. But I was like, I know I got to do this. I know I got to get through this. And so I had my Hutt Slayer tank top that's got this beautiful logo with roses and chains and like her vibro axe from the Looking for Leia documentary. They had made this beautiful logo. And I wore that and it was like my armor. It was like my bravery. It was like my like, yeah, I can do this. And it also came in tandem with this period of my life where I was turning 40.
Okay.
And I had happened to look back through Facebook where I'm never at anymore, but there's all these photos stored back in Facebook.
course,
So
yeah.
like when I'm looking for something, I'll go back and be like, where was that photo?
Yeah.
And I came across a photo of myself when I first moved out west. So I was 24, actually I think in that photo. And I saw it and I didn't recognize myself. I was like, oh my God, who is that?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's me. And then I was like, I mean, granted, I highlighted my hair and I
Okay.
looked a little, bit different because of that. But I definitely looked at it and I was like, oh my God, I was so beautiful. Why didn't I see that?
Oh, interesting.
Why
Yeah.
did I waste all these years not thinking that I was beautiful? And so then it took that other slant of that, mental health and like comparing ourselves to others and like,
Sure.
the beauty standards of society and all that culminated. And I was like, you know what? I am not going to waste one more day not thinking that I currently am young and beautiful. Because when I'm 65 or when I'm 70, when I'm 90, I'll look back on photos from today and I'll think I wasted so many
Yeah.
decades. And I couldn't do that any longer. And I was like, Leia really became like that Hutt Slayer really became this like champion in my head for like, you can take something that is chaining you up, that is holding you back, and you can kill it. Like you can destroy it. Even, and I was like, yes, I am going to destroy this, this lock in my brain and break free. And that became, it just became this bigger thing to me. And then I started being like, okay, I'm turning 40. I was like, and I definitely had that split second. God, I wish I had done that when I was younger. And I was like, no. It's
Yeah.
like, you are still young and beautiful. And I was like, I'm doing it. And I told my husband, I'm like, originally it was like for the Renaissance Festival, which is always super warm. And I was going to kind of like Renaissance-ify it. And I was like, I got my first costume and then I chickened out.
Oh, okay.
And it sat in the box. And I was just like, okay, it's there. It's in the closet. I don't know what I'm ever going to do with it. And I honestly thought I would just like sell it on eBay right away. And then I was like, no, I've got, it's like cliff diving. Like you're standing there and you're like, well, I'm here.
You're
Suddenly
like,
this 20 foot drop looks 50 foot drop,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you're just like, what am I thinking? And it's just getting past those like barriers that you've built up in your mind, right? It's a mental trip. And so I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do it in the Pacific Northwest when it's cold and rainy, I'm at least gonna have the poncho, right? And so I dove into like the only few photos that you have of like that poncho from the deleted sandstorm scene. And I was like, so I like dove into that and I made that and I was like, okay, you know, if I'm too uncomfortable, I'll just wear this the whole time. And I actually went to the Star Wars like area of Comic-Con and like the Rebel Legion 501st, they put together, you know, their scenes and they have a speeder bike every year. And so I jumped on the speeder bike. And then one of the guys that was standing there also in line was like, hey, do you mind if I take your picture? I'm like, yeah, not at all. He's like, you thinking about leaving the poncho on or what are you thinking? And I was like, you know what? I'm taking it off, buddy. And I was
That's
like,
that competition coming out again.
I know. Yes. Don't challenge me, people. I will. God, yes, I will go there. And so, yeah, I did. And I was like, yeah, you know, it wasn't as scary as what I thought. And then I actually fell in love with it because I was like, yeah, I did that. That was cliff diving right there for sure. Yeah, and eventually I got a new set, a new bikini that was made by Scum and Villain Acquisitions. Mario is the sweetest. Just adore him and his work, and I'm so happy it like fits me better. It's not like screen accurate, but I'm like, you know, my last one wasn't screen accurate, and it's pretty darn close, and it looks good. And so then he had the idea of like, because he and some friends did like where they had their clone trooper buckets on, right? And like they made the blue and the white ones for Rose City Comic Con. And so then they were like, you know what, we're coming up. And so then we had this group of us. I was the only one without the helmet because I was like the only one that's original because like Mandalorians and clone troopers, and we were just like, it was insane. We couldn't move because of the amount of people that were taking our photos. And like it was lovely. Like people were so excited. And then later that day I got together with some of my local friends who are cosplayers and we did our Jabba's Palace group. So I like transitioned from one group in the morning to the other in the afternoon. It was just like this, and it was just goofy and fun and like, you know, people loved it. One of my friends is 6'6" and was like our Gamorrean guard, and we were just like, you were the star of the show. It was all you, you know. And so yeah, like it's one of those things. It was really overcoming a lot of mental hurdles and a lot of fears, and I'm really excited that I did it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think there's a lot of good things about that story about overcoming, because you know, sometimes the things that we do, even small things, it feels very isolated, or it's like, oh, this is my issue. But then until we start talking about it with our friends or with other people, it's like, oh, you have the same issue, or you're dealing with the same self-consciousness. Because social media today, everyone seems super confident and they're putting great things out, and you know, it feels like I can't do that. But I think if like this show, you know, I wanted to talk to people about their struggles and even their achievements, because when we talk about it, we all can relate and find ways where we can overcome. But I was really curious about that Slayer Hutt. Like, I would never. I don't think I would ever.
I know. Well, we're all like, you know, especially with Mario, we're like, come join us, people. Like, more people. Like, do it. I think he has officially put out a challenge to the Dad Batch as well, to be like, come on, guys, come on. You've got the buckets. Just get on the bikini. Yeah. And I think they're all like
But even I know there's some people who just in their mind, they go, I would never cosplay. I can never put myself out there to have someone take a picture, you know, and even if it's fandoms they like.
Well, and for folks who are out there who are still being like, oh God, I look at these cosplayers, but I could never do it. The beauty of cosplay, and one of the reasons why I love Batu bounding, and Billy and I talk about like the gradient of like Disney bounding, Batu bounding, you know, like what's a cosplay lower C, cosplay capital C, which you know, Noisy Morning had told us about that originally, and we're like, is like you can start anywhere. You can start super easy. There are characters out there that literally my Kira look that I wore on May 4th was literally all just women's clothing. The only thing is I like sewed, like I cut up a dress and I sewed it in for like the Balso lining, the fuzzy lining, and I was like, this is just clothing. Like there's characters out there that you can just find those classic cosplays, which I love. Like, and then the beauty of that is like I can still go around to the grocery store and like not many people know who I am, right? And I'm like, if you're timid, if you're shy, start there. Like, you can still kind of hang back, but you can have fun.
Yeah, I think we get in our own heads, and me and Billy talked about it when we did the podcast last. It's like we feel like everyone's looking, but then nobody's looking.
Yeah, right. We're all so wrapped up in our own selves, except for that day with the Hutt Slayers. Everybody was looking, but we're asking for it. We're being like, look at us.
Right.
When you've got 5 of us or 6 of us or whatever,
yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah, it is. It's so true that like we're all so concerned about like what people are gonna think and things like that, and we're not so, first of all, judged like what we are, that negative self-talk in our brain is not what other people are thinking, for sure. So
yeah, I definitely have that self-criticism, like we're our own biggest critiques.
Yes,
because even like some of the most amazing things, people will be like, oh, your costume's great and it's everything you're doing, and I was like, well, you don't know because you haven't seen this part of it that wasn't finished.
And then you're like, but this isn't straight, and it's like, we are like, I know. And I think it's been said a few times, like I'll like in that Burgundy Squadron chat that we have, I'll be like, oh my gosh, like you all are so talented, and somebody else will be like, so are you, and I'm like, thank you. Thank you so much, because I forget that, like just because you don't know everything doesn't mean you're not good at anything, right? Like I'm not an armor painter yet, but doesn't mean I'm not good at something else, right?
Yeah. And I think people forget that your costuming has to start somewhere. Like I'm sure your first costume to where you're at now is like night and day.
Yes. Oh my God. And actually, the first costume I ever made, I was in 6th grade. Did you ever read the book, The Castle in the Attic?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So somebody watching might have read it. So The Castle in the Attic, a little boy who gets this toy castle, and it comes like at night, the little knight who's inside comes alive, and he gets transported into his world. Well, there's a sequel. And on the front of the sequel is a picture of like these 3 kids, and one of them is this girl with this, she's in this Renaissance outfit. And I was like, I want that. And so I went to my mom. I was like, I have to go to the fabric store to make this outfit. And she thought it was for a school assignment.
Yeah.
And I didn't correct her.
You're like,
I know nothing. I had sewn like 3 things with my hands as a kid up to that point. So I went and I found the right colors, and I didn't know anything about patterns, so I didn't buy one. And I just went home and I like traced my t-shirt, and I didn't know about like turning seams in or like turning the edges under or anything, but I sewed some ribbon on it, and it was good enough for me. Like it was like wrinkled and puckering, and I just sewed, like folded the material together and sewed it the lengthways to make a skirt, right? And that's what was good enough for me. Like that's where, and my mom then found out it wasn't for school and wasn't really happy, but it was, I don't think I still have it. I do have, the very first thing I ever made was a little bunny that my grandma helped me make out of, she was really short, and so she had to hem all of her pants. And so it was like out of the scraps of her pants. Oh, nice. And I do still have it in a box at my mom's house. That's cool. I'll never get rid of that, because that was what started it. Yeah. Like realizing you could take a needle and thread and flat fabric and turn it into a 3-dimensional object. Yeah. Blew my mind. Right. Like I was just like, this is phenomenal. This is wow. Like, so I'm hooked. Yeah. No, but for anyone listening, if you haven't done cosplay, there's a starting point, and it just takes practice, and it'll come and grow. And even if it's you're buying things at the thrift store, like most of my Batu stuff is from the thrift store, like vests and my jackets. I'm getting it secondhand. I find some great things, by the way, people are getting rid of that works perfectly for Star Wars. Oh, totally. Because like for me, I don't have time to create like from scratch like I used to. So now it's like, throw a little bit of money at Goodwill and I could pretty much find it. And I think if people just do that, they're actually getting kind of ahead of the curve if they want to do these Disney bounds or these. Yeah, I love doing that. Like all my Batu stuff, I think is that route, is secondhand. I'm not sure I've really handmade anything for that. It's just altering. I'll like scissors to it in some way or something like that. And change it up, but you don't even have to do that. So, yeah, and I'm like, I mean, I'll buy like the gloves and the goggles off Amazon. Do you have those gloves that we all have? That like Billy and I have, like, I actually have 2 pairs of them. I was like, oh my god, I had forgotten I had a pair, and I bought another pair. And it's funny because I'll see those goggles that we all have
in movies now. So like,
Yeah.
I'll see him in Furiosa, and they're actually in I think Solo. There's someone's wearing a pair in Solo.
Okay.
So it's like the movie industry is using the same things too. So we're not too far off. We're not too far off.
That is fun too. The folks that are out there like figuring out like, oh, this like Tales from the Gutter Snipe is another really great like account to follow, and it's not so much the clothing, but it's just the items he finds. He's like, oh, these were the glasses that were used, in such and such, or this box, was what was used in this episode of Andor, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is like, yeah, they're going like the movie people are going out and shopping like, the dollar store,
right,
or like Amazon, or right. That's what my dream job that I probably will never have would be, to be a props buyer.
That'd be cool.
Like I kind of go big with like themed parties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Hey, we can manifest that. I was trying to manifest a lot of things. I ask people.
Here we go. Someone hire me.
Yeah, because if you don't say it, then no one knows that you're available to do it. So
there you go.
Look out for Kate for prop stuff.
I love doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's so cool. There's so many avenues in Star Wars that you could take. You could be, Bounder. You could be like your movie thing. You could be into the books. You could be in the comic books, the shows.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to the most for upcoming Star Wars things?
Well, Billy and I just recorded our like take on the trailers for the Acolyte.
Nice.
And wow, that's pretty exciting. I know it's kind of, some people are apprehensive of it, but I'm pretty excited. And it's funny because there's like 5 seconds of that trailer that I've watched over and over again. And it's just the denizens in the market. But I'm also like, there's a storyline, but I just want to see these other costumes. And I feel like it's almost like fantasy, like medieval fantasy Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really exciting to me to be like, because I know this is one of my things, like, what is Star Wars? What isn't Star Wars?
Sure.
Like we've assumed, like we've watched these, I don't know, 60 years or whatever in the timeline of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like what was 100 years? What was 200 years before that? Where did that society come from? I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah.
So.
In my breakdown, I'm like, oh, she's wearing chainmail, like, and plate. Billy and I. So it comes out. It might be coming out this Sunday. So we filmed our first, I don't know, 4 episodes or something, and then we're like, oh, we need to go back and film this one, the Acolyte. So I think we're gonna put it in, because we can release it whenever. So I think that one's coming out like. I don't know when your episode comes out, but this one will come out like the first Sunday of June, so that it's out before the first episodes. But yeah, over a few things like that, we're like, oh, this is a texture we haven't seen used like this. In the Denizen Marketplace, I think I cut it out of my trailer because I was getting too much in the weeds about what everyone was wearing. But I'm like, oh, that's like kind of like a regular like messenger bag. There was a guy on the right, and I was like, Yes, that individual who has that duster coat and like that little hat. Yes, so I broke that look down because I was like, this person, they are like, I was like, I have this coat. Okay, it wasn't quite the same texture, but I was like, I got that coat. I need to find that hat. They are my new style icon. And I was like looking at his bag. I was like, how did they Star Wars it up? And it's like nothing. They're just like,
we talked about that as well. We talked about Billy is definitely, so Billy is on the end of the spectrum of the Greeblies, like minimal.
Right.
One is the key accent piece, right? Okay. And like other friends of ours are like, I don't know, I don't think you got enough. And I'm like, you can be either, that's fine. But I believe Billy was pointing out, like, look at these denizens and their lack of Greeblies.
Yeah, they didn't. I don't even think there was.
I would say Greebly. I think I pronounced it wrong.
I would say Greebly too. I haven't heard Greebles. Oh, okay. I haven't heard Greebles.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Is this like a GIF or a GIF situation thing?
Yeah.
No, but they were very. They didn't have much on, like, that guy with the bag. I was like, okay, how did they Star Wars it up? And there's like barely anything.
I feel like the textures and the cuts of the clothing was really what they were using to drive this is Star Wars.
Right.
And Billy and I definitely talked about it more in that episode, but like, and that was exciting. I was really excited about that, about like looking at something completely new and being like, oh yeah, well, of course it looks Star Wars, and you kind of break it down. Well, why? Like, that's fun.
And then even in real life, looks change almost year to year, decade to decade. So why would 100 years prior to what we know as the Galactic Empire be the same as the High Republic time? So we're going to have a bunch of new looks, I know for sure, from you.
Yes, I know. I already am like beautiful purple patchwork coat. I'm like, oh God, I don't need another cosplay because of course there's 5 that I have in the back of my head. 3 have materials purchased, and I'm like, but I want that coat.
Yeah. And because it's
the cosplay, I just want to wear the coat.
And because it's medieval, I'm like, okay, well, here's your chance to use those Lord of the Rings cosplays, those Renaissance ones into Star Wars now.
Mash them up. Oh, man. It's kind of all my favorite things, right? Yeah, totally. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited for that.
Yeah. If the show's not good, I'm at least excited for the props that I've seen so far and the costuming because it looks great.
Emily from Universe of Emily had sent a message to me, and she was like, you're gonna like this. And I was like, oh, because she had gone to the Hollywood premiere.
Oh,
I'm like,
nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, great. I'm like, somebody who's seen it is saying like, no, you're gonna like it. I'm like, awesome. I'm relieved. Because you know, a new show coming out, you never know. You're always a little like, ooh, like the Lord of the Rings TV show that came out,
right.
Like it was a little like, are people gonna like it? Are people not gonna like it? Like, you know, kind of deal. So it's always nerve-wracking when something new in your favorite genre comes out. I get it.
Yeah. I got to admit, I didn't watch all of the Lord of the Rings. I fell off about midway through.
I think we watched the whole thing. I think I was able to like separate it from what I know. You know what I mean? Because like I love it. I've loved it for a long time, but I haven't, you know, read all the books or anything like that. So I feel like I was able to be like, okay, this is a new take on it, and just leave it at that. But I know a lot of people were like, whoa.
Not my Lord of the Rings.
And I respect that too. I was like, yeah, that's fine. If it didn't read, you know, as this, you know, congruent with the other stuff to you, that's fine.
Yeah, you can pick and choose. And you know, everyone has their own opinions. I'm not going to get super mad about that.
Totally.
What is so having your Instagram and putting these looks together, what is some of the speed bumps or the hardships that you've had doing this for fun that you might be experiencing or have experienced?
Well, decent lighting for photos or videos. God.
Sure. It looks fine. It looks great. It looks great. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, like, I feel like there's this a bit of chasing the sun. You know what I mean? Especially in the winter. I'm pretty far north, where it's like, oh man, if I don't take my photo by 3:30 outside,
yeah.
I can see my face. I think like sometimes just like scheduling things, or because a lot of my looks I do wear like in my regular everyday life. Some of them I'm like, okay, I tone it down a little bit. And Billy and I have talked kind of about that in our podcast. But there was one day that I was for the challenge I did in May, in the beginning of May, I did that Anakin Skywalker look.
Okay, yeah.
And I loved that look. Like it was so good. But then I had to go pick my son up at kindergarten. I was like, I gotta change. I can't walk into kindergarten looking like Anakin Skywalker. That's a hard no.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's a little like scheduling of like, okay, well I have a chiropractor appointment that day, so I can't wear a dress or like something like that. And then I think also just like realizing that there's varying degrees. Like you don't have to look exactly like the character, right? Sure. Sometimes I get more into closet cosplay and I'm like, I could tone it down. Like there are some Disney bounders I think are so talented, and of course I can't remember anyone's name right now, but they are so talented because their looks are so simple. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, they might have a plaid shirt on, but the beauty is that they've figured out that plaid represents that character.
Right.
And it's so subtle, and I love that about Disney bounding because it really can be as subtle and as extreme as you want it to be.
Yeah.
There is a spectrum within the genre.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I get a little overboard on my looks, I think, for practicality purposes.
Sure.
But yeah, those are, I think, some of the roadblocks. But yeah, and then just probably having too full of a closet. Someday I'll give it to her, I swear.
I think everyone would love to see that, you and Billy, and if you guys do that.
And Billy and I actually talked about like doing a funny little skit of like, Billy, why is this one in your closet? And like, we don't talk about that.
That would be awesome. No, you guys are doing great things on Off the Rack. I just the few episodes that I've listened into, it's been super informative, and getting to see even just like the a video versus just Instagram posts and captions. It's like, oh, the personalities and the fun and kind of digging deeper into that. I think it's been great so far.
Thank you. Yeah, a bunch of our friends have been like, oh, that's what you sound like. Like, I should probably get into making reels. I don't know. I'm not into making reels, but I guess I should get over it. Because usually I'm like, I hate listening to my voice. Like, I know a lot of people are like that, where it's like, it's not my voice, but I'm getting over it. Because I watched that first episode that Billy and I did once it came out, and I had a huge grin on my face, and I was like laughing at my own comments. I'm like, oh my God, I'm such a dork, but this is good, And I was like, and Billy is such a great person to know. Mm-hmm. Just a wealth of information and gracious and talented I love sitting around talking to him about this. Yeah. I'm like, yes, we could talk about this for hours. We're gonna talk about this for hours. We actually, one of our planning, we did a FaceTime just to plan. Yeah. One day, like our first few episodes, and I was like, why are we not recording this? Because we are saying some perfect stuff right now. Yeah. And so I was like, Ramey's like, if you guys ever want to just have those meetings like in, the program that we use for it, he's like, just let me know. I'll send you a link. You can get in. I'll just push record, and if we want to use it, we can use it.
Behind the scenes, just like put it on Patreon or something. That'd be fun.
Right? We said a few good things. He's like, I can splice that in. We're like, okay, all right.
That's awesome. No, me and my buddy Eli, we love movies, and we have interest in sports and stuff. So we're like, if we didn't record it, this would be the same conversation we would be having, so we might as well record it.
Yep. And that's what sometimes we'll be like, hey, remember that time we talked about? Like, let's talk about it again. We said a few weeks ago. We're like, we're going to do it again. We're going to say it.
No, I think it's great. And I wanted to ask, so again, going back to the content creator thing and what you do, if someone, is there advice that you would have for someone who wanted to get into, I want to also post bounds, Disney bounds and looks, what kind of advice could you give them stepping into doing these more a day-to-day, want to be like influencer or maybe something that they just would get their toe dipped in?
I don't know if I'm an expert at all. I just started doing it.
You might have some advice or maybe something that you wish you knew before.
The one thing that really got me, like, I guess to this other level, because it has become this thing. I have to admit that. Like it's definitely. I never meant to like suddenly have a podcast talking about fashion, Star Wars. Somehow I'm here. There's weird stuff in the cosmos right now. I don't know, but it was just for fun, and then it was just to meet other people. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like go out and like look. Unfortunately, the hashtags don't work the way they used to, right? It was a really nice way to search things. Yeah. But kind of once you find one person, you can kind of go through and be like, okay, who are they following, right?
Yeah,
You can kind of like branch out by that, or like when there is one of these weekly challenges that's smaller, that has a smaller hashtag, it's easier to find. Okay, like I'm going to go in and look and see who else is doing this and what they're doing. And literally, I've like, just from this last challenge and the March challenge before that, like found a few new people that I'm like, we are going to be friends. Like, I just love what you're doing. And like, you are just so nice. And like, it's just fun. It really was a social thing for me that became kind of it's this mix of like social tool and social event and creative outlet at the same time, which is wonderful. So yeah, I would just be like put together what you feel like, because it's creativity. Nothing is wrong. You know what I mean? Like everyone has their own interpretation, and I love that. Put together your look, share it, talk to other people, comment, like come to my page, comment on something, like I'll find you. You know what I mean? Like it's really is kind of like once you get connected to a couple of other people, and then we have this conversation going on, and you get connected that way. I love it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't be afraid. Like nobody's wrong. Like just put out what you're doing. Like do it.
Yeah. Because I think if you're chasing your passion and if you're posting your passion, you're going to find like-minded people like we have already.
For sure.
And again, there's a lot of great people out there who also feel maybe that they're lonely or feel like they're the only ones doing it too. And I think with the good and the bad of social media and the internet, how it is, there's still corners of light and fun and joy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm always saying, I'm like, we were so lucky that we found this really great corner of this Star Wars fandom that just everyone is so nice and connected and welcoming. And I think we have a lot of diversity, which I really respect and is really important to me. And like, if you're one of those people that's like, I can't find my place in the universe, like, come find us.
Yeah.
like you will find your people. Like, there's something for everybody in this universe.
For sure.
And if whether it's Disney bounding or whether it's Star Wars and Star Wars bounding or cosplay, like there's something for everybody.
There's so much. Well, we've gone over an hour, and it was so lovely talking to you. I just felt it goes by so fast.
I know, right? You're a good interviewer, by the way. I know, because I watched
you.
the one with Billy and I watched the one with Doug, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, he's got good questions.
I try, and I'm
you.
like, I'm fans of you guys, and so if you guys are talking about things on other things, I'm like, okay, well, let's, because it's a little selfish of me, because I'm like, I actually want to know, right? But it hasn't been talked about, but I was like, well, let's record it and, share. So I would love to have you on again whenever we could make our schedules match.
For sure. I know it took a while to line up, right? But family life, it happens.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah. No, I'm glad we were able to finally schedule it. And I feel like I'm like, in a way, bounty hunting all the Burgundy Squadron people. I'm like, I'm going to find you.
Card, right?
So I'm gonna like start scratching off names and using the Discord, because Billy has the whole roster. I'm like, okay, there's numbers.
Who else do I need?
So if you guys stay tuned in, please keep out for the Burgundy Squad people and more guests on the show. Where can we find you if you can plug some of your stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So my cosplay Disney bounding account is One Scavenger's Wardrobe. There's underscores between the words. And then Billy Maddox and I have our podcast, which is at Off the Rack Rebellion. And there's periods between those words.
Period, rack period.
Yeah. Yes.
No, you guys are doing a great podcast. It's so funny because the episode 0, I know you guys were like kind of feeling like timid, but you guys roll right into the naturalness, and you guys are great.
Thank you.
You guys have been doing
great. We both talk, and if you have the ability to watch us on YouTube, you get extra content because we both talk with our hands a lot.
A lot of hand gestures. And the looks too. You guys are bringing in looks on
we are. We are. On those days that we film like a few in a row, we're like, are you changing?
Yeah, I'm changing.
Too. Okay, all right, I'll be right back.
I definitely do that
people
too.
Expect.
Yeah, you guys are showing up, and it's like, okay, well, I think you guys had a conversation like, are you wearing belts? Are you wearing? What are you wearing?
Oh, yeah, I was like, how many belts are you wearing? I got 2.
I'm waiting for someone to go 3. Let's see who decides.
Well, that's what sometimes we do. Yeah, sometimes it's like, okay, 2 one way and 1 slanted the other way, right? Or like your hip belt slanted the other. Yeah, belts. That's one of our big tips is like multiple belts and you look like you're in Star Wars.
Yeah, for sure.
And your spouse doesn't want to go out with you, but
that's fine. That's fine. Well, thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. Again, thank you, Ceit, for being on the show. Please subscribe to the Rancor channel. You can find me on IG, Rancor, REIGN, CORE. Please support. If you want to buy some cool t-shirts, rancorclothing.com. And Ceit, thank you so much once again. It was so lovely and talking with you, chatting with you, and I hope you can come back again soon.
Absolutely.
And I hope the rest of you guys have a great, wonderful galactic day. Punch it, Chewie. Boom. Bye, guys. Burgundy Squadron out.